Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel Cakes by MK. In today's video, I'm going to be challenging myself to make a gorgeous wedding cake using only $50 on both decorations and ingredients. I'm going to show you guys exactly everything I bought, how much everything cost, what I managed to save a little bit of money on to make things a little bit cheaper, and I'm also going to show you guys my thought process that went behind designing this cake, as well as, of course, putting it all together at the end. If you're new to my channel, please click the subscribe button below and don't forget to turn on the notification bell so that you're updated whenever I upload a new video. Apart from that, stay tuned and I hope you guys enjoy this video. So let's start off by taking a look at the different ingredients and decorations that I bought for my cake, all under $50. So one of the best things that you can do when trying to reduce the costs when it comes to actually making the cake is just to buy a cheap but good quality cake mix. So what I've got here is I've got a golden butter cake mix, which is basically just a nice vanilla cake. And this cost me $2.50, which is super cheap. And I basically bought 3 of those, so I'm hoping that will be enough to give me some decent layers in my wedding cake. Now for these cake mixes, you will need to buy some additional ingredients to turn them into a cake batter. So for that, I needed some milk, so I just bought a cheap 1 litre bottle of milk, which cost me $2.50. I've got all the prices written down on my tablet because I couldn't remember them by heart. And then I also needed some butter, so I just bought some salted butter because it's cheaper than unsalted butter, and that cost me $5.69. Then I also bought a whole bunch of eggs, so just a tray of eggs. These are 12 large eggs, and that cost me $4. Now when it comes to the buttercream, or frosting that you're using on your cake, I find that just making your own is the cheapest option. So what I've got here is I've got some icing sugar, some vanilla essence, and some unsalted butter for my buttercream. I'm just going to make a simple American style buttercream which tastes amazing and it's really easy to make. So my unsalted butter cost me $5.78 and my vanilla essence cost me $1.19, and then my icing sugar cost me $3. So that is all my ingredients done. Now when it comes to the deco for a wedding cake almost always has flowers on it. So what I did today to save money is instead of buying fresh flowers, I bought fake flowers. What I managed to find are these really beautiful large fake roses, which are a super decent quality for the price. I was really happy with these, and they also came with a lot of greenery as well, which I can use on my cake. And this whole stem here, which comes with 2 roses as well as a bud and the greenery, cost me $3.50. So I bought 2 of those, so altogether this all cost me $7, which is an absolute bargain. Then I also bought some extra little kind of flowers to put around my roses, and this whole bunch here cost me $4. Now in the price, I did decide to include some of the things which require, you to build your wedding cake. And so first up, I've got some cake cards here, and those cost me 30 cents each. Now I've also got some cake dowels here. Now these dowels were actually pretty expensive. It cost me $4, I think. No, $5. So these cost me $5. But to save more money, you can literally just buy some bubble tea straws, which will be so much cheaper. And then last, I've got a nice big cake board here, which cost me $2.50. So altogether, for all my ingredients and deco, the total price was $48.26, which I am super happy with. And now we're going to move on to the next step, which is designing this wedding cake. So I'm going to quickly run you guys through what's going through my mind in terms of the design of this wedding cake, and hopefully I'll be able to execute it. So what I want to do first is I want to start off by having a 8-inch layer on the bottom, but only 1 layer. So I think I'm not going to have enough cake to make, like a really tall cake. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 6-inch tier, which is going to be built up of 3 cake layers. So it's going to be a little bit higher. And then I'm going to finish off by adding another 1 layer tier right on the top, which is just going to be a little baby 4-inch cake. And then what I want to do is I want to add my roses kind of up the top corner here, as well as the bottom corner on the opposite side. So if I draw that in, which will probably not look very nice, but that's okay. And then some of those little kind of flowers that I've got. Okay, so my flowers are looking pretty horrible, so just be kind in the comment section, and then I'm just going to finish off by adding some greenery. Okay, so that is it. It actually doesn't look too bad. Hopefully you guys get the idea, and now we're going to start baking. So when it comes to making the cake, all you want to do is follow the instructions on your cake mix box. So this one is pretty easy. It basically says to just add all the ingredients to a bowl and just mix it together with a hand mixer. So I'm just adding in my cake mixes first. And then I just softened my butter, so I'm adding that in. And then I've got to add in 6 eggs. And then lastly, I'm just going to add in 525 mils of milk. And now I'm simply going to mix that together with my hand mixer for about 2 minutes. So what I've got here is I've got some pre-prepared cake tins which I just coated with my easy cake release recipe, and I'll post a link to that below. Now I didn't actually account for the cost of the ingredients that it takes to make this cake release, but just to be fair, I am going to include it in because I did say, the cost of any ingredients that it takes to create this wedding cake. So the amount that I use to, coat these pans is probably about maybe 20 cents, if, even less than that, but I'm just gonna go with the 20 cents. And so that takes my total amount at the moment to $48.40 something cents, I think. So I've still got $1 somewhere, in case I've forgotten something. So we're still okay. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute my cake batter evenly into these cake tins. So I've got one 8-inch cake, which is for my bottom tier, and it's just going to be a 1 layer. Then I've also got 3 6-inch cake tins, which are going to be for that middle taller layer. And then I've got one little baby 4-inch cake tin, which is going to be my little tier on the top. So I was lucky enough to just be able to fill my cake tins. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop these into the oven, and while they're cooking away, we're going to go ahead and make our buttercream. So for my buttercream today, I'm just making a simple American style buttercream. So for my ingredients, I've got my icing sugar, my unsalted butter, which I softened, my milk, and my vanilla. So I'm going to start off by creaming my butter for about 5 minutes on a medium to high speed in my mixer, and you can also do this with a hand mixer as well. Now, once your butter has finished creaming up, you know that it's done when it's lighter in color and it's doubled in volume. Then the next thing to do is to add our icing sugar to our butter, and I'm going to do this in 2 batches. Now, once that's all nicely mixed in, I'm going to go ahead and add in my vanilla. Now the last thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to add in a bit of milk in my buttercream to thin it out a bit so that it's nice and smooth. Okay, so my buttercream is all done, and now we're going to start icing our cakes. So my cakes are all ready now. They have completely cooled, and I'm going to go ahead and trim the tops of all of my cake layers so that they're all nice and flat. So I'm just using a serrated knife to do this, and you just want to keep your knife really nice and straight. Now, I'm not going to lie, I did slightly overbake these cakes, which is why they're a bit extra brown on the edges. I started cleaning up and actually forgot about them, so don't forget about your cakes. But I mean, I've just cut through the top and they look absolutely fine. So I have finished trimming all the tops, and now I'm going to start stacking my cake. Now usually I put simple syrup on my cake layers as I'm stacking them to help keep them nice and moist, but instead what I did today, so I didn't have to spend extra on sugar, is I simply got my leftover milk and I added 2 teaspoons of instant coffee powder into it to create my kind of simple syrup, which I'm going to put on top of my cake layers. And I estimated my 2 teaspoons of instant coffee to come to about 50 cents, so I think I'm still just under $50. So I'm just starting off by putting a little bit of buttercream on my cake board. Now I'm just putting my coffee milk mixture on top. And just using my offset spatula, I'm just going to start spreading buttercream all over the cake, and then I'm going to smooth it out with my cake scraper. Okay, so I have done my 8-inch tier. Now I'm going to put that aside and go ahead and do my 6-inch tier. So for my 6-inch tier, I'm just going to place it on a separate acrylic disc, and then I've also got my cake card, which I cut out from that bigger one that I had because I couldn't find the right size. So I cut out a 6-inch cake card and a 4-inch cake card, slightly smaller than 6 inch and 4 inches, so that it's not kind of showing on the bottom. And I'm simply going to start stacking my 6-inch cake on my 6-inch cake card. Okay, so I have done the crumb coats on my cakes now. It looks like I will have enough buttercream to be able to cover all these cakes completely, which is good because at the moment my crumb coats aren't looking that great because my buttercream was becoming too hard really quickly because it's really cold here in New Zealand at the moment, and so it was a little bit hard for me to ice my cakes. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop these into the fridge now just for about half an hour or so to allow the buttercream to firm up and trap all those crumbs, and in the meantime I'm going to go ahead and warm up and re-whip my buttercream. So my cakes are out of the fridge now, the buttercream is nice and firm, so I'm going to go ahead and do my final coat of buttercream. And that is my 4-inch tier done, and now I'm going to pop these all into the fridge again for about an hour to allow the buttercream to become really nice and firm, and then we're going to come back to finish stacking and decorating this cake. So my cakes are out of the fridge now, the buttercream is nice and firm, so I'm going to go ahead and start stacking my cake. So first what I'm going to do is I'm going to place some dowels in this bottom tier and then place my 6-inch tier on top of that. Now if you're not quite sure what dowels are, why you need them, or how you use them, then I will post a link below to a more in-depth tutorial on this. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to use my cake scraper to help me release my 6-inch cake from my acrylic disc, and just make sure that your cake cut is on the bottom because that's what's going to sit on top of these dowels that we just placed into our bottom tier. And because our cakes are nice and cold, it should be really easy to just release from the acrylic disc and just pick up with your hands. Oh, actually, I forgot to place a little bit of buttercream down, which is going to help stick our tiers together. Now once your cake tiers are kind of sitting where they look like they're supposed to be sitting, then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up this cake. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill in these gaps over here and then just smooth them out with my cake scraper. So I have finished cleaning up my cake now. It's looking pretty good. And now we're just going to finish off with some decorating. So to finish off decorating, I've got my fake flowers here, and just make sure that you do wash and dry your flowers before putting them into your cake because you don't know where they've been. So you just want to make sure that they're nice and clean. And now I'm simply going to go ahead and just poke them into my cake like how I had in my original design. I feel like these roses are a bit big for the bottom, so I might just poke one in and then poke the little flowers around it. Now with my spare rose, what I might do is I think I'm going to poke it up the top so it gives the cake a little bit more height. Okay, I think I might be going a bit overboard with the flowers now, so I'm just going to try and rein it in. Okay, it's just taking me way too long to decide what to change and what to add on, so I decided I'm just going to leave it just like that. So that is my cake all done. I'm really happy with how this cake has come out. I like how it's got that larger tier in the middle, so I wanted that effect to come through, which I feel like it has. It is slightly smaller in size compared to how tall I thought it was going to be, but it's still a really decent sized wedding cake, and I would say that this would comfortably feed about 50 people dessert sized pieces. Compared to the design that I had sketched out earlier, I'd say I did a pretty decent job in, bringing it to life. It looks pretty similar. Now, one last thing is to cut a slice of this cake and see what it tastes like, because even though we made it on a budget, it should still taste just as good as it looks. Now, I haven't actually taken photos of this cake yet, so I'm just going to take a little slice from the back, so hopefully you can't see it. And that is my little baby slice of cake, which I'm going to taste test. That tastes really good. I'm really happy with how this cake both looks and tastes. So that's basically it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think in the comment section below, and thanks again for watching Cakes by MK.